A lot of my DZBT01 videos were either, really great or just didn't perform. And then, of course, you have Krysrain. What the actual hell? Hey, what's going on, guys? I'm DZBT04 here. Today, I am back to cover Krysrain in Divines again. So, as those of you who know from watching my previous deck profiles on stuff like, what was the deck called? Astrum, you know that I'm currently in the midst of also going back to edit and re-update Divines deck profiles, which is very interesting because this whole time I've just been updating all the decks for Divines. Now I'm updating the Divines decks themselves. And one of them that I've really had the chance to relook at it a second time and I feel much more grateful towards is Krysrain. Krysrain is Mikoto Saito's fated one. She's the Asian teenager in the show, and then she gets completely washed up after I think episode 5, and then you completely don't know about her for plot relevance other than, oh, she's a girl. But today we're going to look at her deck because her deck has actually left behind quite an important impact on this meta, I would say. A lot of the decks this format and upcoming in DZBT03, Dimensional Super Jump, are all decks that all fall within similar categories, which is quite interesting to me. I don't know how they will address this in June, for the June ban list. I want to say they should ban something, but at the same time, I don't think I should be the one pointing fingers. So, with that out of the way, I think that's completely fine that we are going to talk about this deck. Again, Krysrain is a deck that is very unique because the lines between direct and indirect support are very thin. So, you can see this list, and if you're not a fan of it, you can just build it in any way you want. Frankly, I don't really care. I think it's really up to you. But something else I'm also going to just say out of the way is that there are many different ways to play the Krysrain, and this is one of the ways that I enjoy playing it in the modern day. But again, if you have other methods of playing her, because there are many different packages you can fit in this deck, I think it's completely fine. Moving on to our right deck. Our right deck, we need to talk about energy. So as those of you who already know, the Krysrain is a very energy-reliant deck. A lot of the skills I actually won't be going through in great detail. I'm going to put a link in the description below for my previous Krysrain deck profile. I strongly recommend you check that first because I'll cover most of the skills there. I'm going to glimpse through a lot of it here. Energy is of course very important because this deck uses a lot of energy. Our grade 0s, you can play any grade 0 you want. Obviously, because this is the Armez004 channel, we are going to use Feltyrosa. But, there's nothing stopping you from playing any other starter you want. It's just that, I would always tell you to play this starter. That you have to respect best girl. Okay, 1s and 2s are surprising. We are playing the Siana right line. Yes, Siana. Now, I know a lot of you are thinking, why didn't you make a Siana, Siana deck profile for Divines? Well, I'm still waiting for modern support for Siana, so why would I? But what I like most about the Siana right line, as mentioned by previous award-winning content creators like Cardfight, is that they used to talk a lot about Siana in terms of her defensive aspects, and then suddenly it just all vanished. Like no one remembers this anymore, which I thought was really strange. I was like, hold on, I think we are still sleeping on something. And I'm definitely right. Because the Siana right line prevents you from being early rushed, or at least it gives you a deterrent that you will not be rushed as much, which really helps because Krysrain is not a deck that uses a lot of counterblasts, which is, that's just how it is. Krysrain is a lot like a ramp deck. It focuses on getting to grade 3 and then snowballing a lot of advantage, and using stuff like Siana to really stall out your grade 1 and grade 2 game is more helpful than you really think. Yes, you don't get the full benefits of the Siana right line. You only get to use her skill where when she's rolled upon by a grade 2 Siana, you Soul Blast 1, draw 1, and then you return all your opponent's front row rear guards back to the hand. And you don't get the on-right effect for Siana's grade 2 to 3, but I think that's completely fine. I don't think there is a pressing need for Krysrain to get more card advantage. I know her previous right line is just, you just call a card and call a card, but you don't really get anything out of calling the top 2 cards of your deck. Like, if you've seen Blast the Dark, if you've seen stuff like Magnolia's old right line, if you've seen, some of the more sillier decks like Alden, you would know that sometimes not everything in life is about spirit calling. And I think that's why, above all, when we need to actually live till turn 4, it may be better to just stall it out. And of course, that's Krysrain. Krysrain is, of course, the main part of this deck. 2 skills. Once per turn, you can counterblast 1, and for every number of cards with different names on your side of the field, you can get different effects equal to the numbers that you have. So you have 1, 2, or 5, I think. You can get these effects. So you can draw 1 and energy charge 3. You can give a unit 15,000 power, and then this unit can gain a critical, which is all not bad. So generally, if you choose yourself, it's a 28k 2 crit center column, which would put Majesty Lord Blaster to complete shame. So yeah, good job, Majesty Lord Blaster. You are already worthless. The second skill is the Divine skill. At the end of the battle, this unit attacks a creature unit. Use the skill for free. Divine skills are once per game though. Put the whole board back into your hand. Choose a card from among them. Choose a card from your hand. Superior call it. That card gains the power and criticals of Krysrain. So it's a nice auto win button if you manage to play towards that aspect. You do need some level of setup and grind, then you can actually use this large amount of firepower to really end the game. If not, you generally don't really get much from this. Moving on to our grade 3s. Our grade 3s, obviously we play 3 copies of Krysrain in the main deck and 1 in the right deck. It's very intuitive, and then we also play 2 of this on hit counter charges, and then we also play a ladder. I know a lot of people are like, oh, I hate ladder, I can't afford ladder. Too bad, you need ladder. Because ladder literally gives your Vanguard 5000 power when played, moves this to the soul, draw a card, and then your whole board's protected for a turn from card effects, which generally speaking is the best thing you can give to a deck that needs the whole board around. So yeah, I know that a lot of Krysrain variants have a lot of bounce effects, which is true, but that should not be, the excuse to say, oh, I will willingly choose up to not get board protection, because there are some times where you just don't get the bounce because Krysrain gains effects equal number of different names, which means you can't actually play 4 of everything, right? So yeah, that's generally why I still choose to have ladder. You don't need ladder if Shiranui is not in your household, but I think if you live within at least 3 kilometers of a Shiranui player, you should consider picking this up. Then we have this girl. She's actually really good, if you ask me, but again, it's only a 2 off at max. On the front row circle, if all your other units have different names, your opponent can only choose this unit for card effects, which is wonderful because you now basically give the rest of your board resist, in a sense. And then afterwards, the second effect is that if it hits, you just counter charge 1, which is very simple, and it's good because you need counter blast for this deck. Surprisingly, for a card that's come out in DZBT02, it's amazing that they were actually paving the way for Highlander support way before Highlander. And then, of course, 3 Krysrain. Moving right on to our grade 2s. Our grade 2s, we play a copy of Siana in the right deck. Because, we've already mentioned that we are playing Siana in the right deck. But what else do we play? This is very interesting because Krysrain as a deck actually has 3 very important cards you need to play in the grade 2 lineup, and they all come from divine sets. So we have 4 copies of Francet, 4 copies of Agnes, 4 copies of Francet, and then we play 4 copies of Precia. If these look expensive to you, they should. They are all triple rares from DZBT01 and DZBT02. And they all work super well together. I cannot even stop to tell you how tight of a core this forms, and it really all centers around Krysrain's love for energy. And I'll go through each and one of them quickly because I've already covered most of these before. Precia is your normal gun cycler for energy. You've probably already heard about this card to the moon and back. If you can't afford Precia, I am sorry because Krysrain does feel a lot weaker without it. When discarded from the hand for, ride, or if you guard with this card, Calm Blast 1 or Energy Blast 3, draw a card. And then when placed on regular circle, if you person on the right this turn, Calm Blast 1 and Energy Blast 3. And then afterwards, you can give one of your units 5000 power. And then you put it back to the hand, if I'm not mistaken. Let me just check that. Because I feel like I'm misreading that text. One moment. Yeah, you choose one of your units and it gains 5. If you choose a rear guard, you bounce it back. I know that second effect sounds really bad, but you don't usually play Precia for that, unless you want to give 5k to Krysrain, which is, really good. The draw effects for the energy is really where this power lies. That's really all there is to say about it when it comes to that detail. So the thing is that because Krysrain gets a lot of energy, you generally will have enough cost to pay for these. Francet is our newest triple rare from DZBT02. A lot of players have kidnapped her for Fennel and other generic decks. I'm very sorry, Krysrain players, you don't deserve this. Skills are very simple. When chosen by the effects of your grade 3 or greater Krysrain Vanguard, choose one of your units and then you can give it 10,000 power. Again, this effect seems very out of place, and you may be asking yourself, why would I need that? Like, why does this effect matter to me? It's because, you can actually give Francet 15,000 power with Krysrain, and Krysrain gives back Francet gives back Krysrain a total of 10,000 power, which means Krysrain is still a 23k 2 crit center column, which, you know, it's pretty devastating depending on who you ask. The second skill is that when this unit attacks, if you have 3 or more card units with different names, it gains 5,000 power, and if you have 4 or more with different names, at the end of the battle, choose from your other rearguards and bounce it back to the hand. So the more diverse board you have with Francet, the more she can capitalize into power, bounce, power, bounce, power, bounce, for virtually no cost. It's effectively costless, this entire card, which is why Francet is so devastating and quite expensive. But the thing is that, you know, this is a bit like a paradox, where if you play too little Francet on the board, you don't get kill power. But if you play too many Francet, it just doesn't work. However, someone who's completely evergreen is Agnès. Agnès is one of the strongest cards in my opinion for this deck, and that's because, you know, it really carries Krysrain for the advantage game. And I'll explain to you why in just a bit. Innocent Orange Agnès. The skill is that when placed on rearguard circle, if your Vanguard's a great tree or greater, Krysrain, Calm Last 1 and Energy Blast 3, look at the top 5, call one from among them that has a different name for everyone else on the board, and shuffle the deck. They basically gave you Agloville. I don't know why, but okay, I think this deck deserves it. When this unit attacks a grade 3 or greater unit, if you have 4 more units with different card names, it gains 10k until the end of the battle. So not only can she gain 10,000 pounds well, she's also a board builder, which is very good. So you can see why a lot of the grade 2s for Krysrain are very important. Moving on to the grade 1s, and it's not going to get cheaper from here, my friends. We play a copy of Siana in the right line, because, you know, I've already mentioned that we are playing Siana. So, yep. And then obviously we play for Eureka. Yes, I told you this deck is expensive. We play 4 Perfect Guards. Keep them all different name, then you will be happy. We play 4 of this girl. Then we play 2 copies of this Reseus, and then 2 copies of Albina. Albina, generally speaking, is just if your Vanguard is a great, you get a Krysrain, 5,000 power, 5,000 shield. So you can use it as an offensive 13k booster or attacker, and then you can bounce it back to hand for a 10k shield. Nice, but again, you don't want too many of her because she's not that great. You already know Reseus from Relista and whatever not lyrical bullshit decks you play. The skill is very simple. When placed on the radar circle, choose one of your units against 10. I'm not going to explain this effect. It's just good because Krysrain is a deck that does throw around power quite nicely with the divine skill and whatnot. So you can actually use Reseus to try and close gaps. But again, you don't play this and more than 2 off because it can break you. Next up, we have this girl. This girl is insanely broken. I wish I could explain to you why, because, you know, there's something about her that I really hate this card. Honestly, as someone who's playing Krysrain, I hate that I'm playing this. And that is, of course, Cynical Composer Raum. During the battle, this unit boosted if you have grade 3 or greater Vanguard Krysrain, its card name against 3,000 power. When this unit boosts a grade 3 or greater Vanguard Krysrain, its card name, if you have 4 more units on the board with different card names, 1, 2, 3, 4. So it's very easy to do that. Energy Blast 3, and the end of the battle, when your opponent will call cards without Sentinel from the hand to Guardian Circle, they need to call 3 or more cards with different grades at the same time. So basically, you're telling your opponent, if you don't perfect guard this attack, you need to go -4. Yes, -4. Because if you actually do the math and sit down, the highest shield the grade 0 can reach is 25,000 shield. The highest shield grade 1 can reach is realistically 10 to 15k shield. And then if you play another grade 2, that's another 5,000 shield. So if you add that all up, 25, 5 to 15, another 5, you get about 30k shield, which would only be 1 to pass for Krysrain. So you have to guard even further than that. It's no longer as simple as, oh, just guard with all your triggers, lol. You are now forced to guard with multiple grades across the ratio, which is disastrous for anyone who is on the receiving end of this ability. Not to mention, this text here is not restricted to your opponent being grade 3 or greater, unlike Agnès and so on and so forth. You can use this on turn 3 going first and steamroll your opponent's hand if he does not want to take the 2 crit attack from Krysrain. So, really, this card's a 4 off. I mean, if I had to go and explain this any further, I think I'll get a cardiac arrest halfway. 4 perfect guards, because we want to stay alive. Yeah, just play different names, yeah. Eureka, good stuff, you know, she just gains 5,000 power if you know, call a unit to the same column as her, and your Vanguard's grade 3 or greater. Yeah, and then when at the end of battle this unit boosts, you Soul Blast 1 and bounce the booster unit back to the hand. It's just good lyrical generic. You play 4, but generally you just need 1 to 2 of on the board, although I would recommend just 1. right? The rest are just to make sure you definitely see Eureka. I know some people are not comfortable around Eureka, and I think that's very fair. So if you want, you can play it at a 3-off. I think it's very respectable still. And last but not least, our triggers. Our triggers, obviously, we play a grade 0 starter. Again, I believe any starter is completely fine for this deck. There's no specific needs for a starter. We play the Lyrical Overtrigger, because Lyrical Overtrigger is pretty good. We play 8 critical, so, 1, 2, 3, 4, that's 8 crits. We play 3 draw, has to be effect draw, and then we play 4 heals. Normal heals is fine. And that will wrap up for me, my Krysrain deck profile for Divines. Again, in set 2, I like this deck a lot. I don't think I am very clear when doing this video, but I'm actually a great fan of this deck. Now, I hated this deck back then, but right now I feel that Krysrain really has what it takes to compete as a fated one. And I think it's really because of the support then and now, and being able to modify and really look through the deck once again, that I really start to appreciate, the strengths of this deck. I think that we've reached a stage where, it's pretty good right now. So, just give it a try. I think it's pretty worth it. Thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.